Did you know Americans eat more than 10 billion bowls of soup a year? Try this healthy spin on a fall soup recipe. Hey guys, welcome back to At the Table, and we are continuing with our Fall into Cooking series. So today we are making a really healthy soup that uses some common fall ingredients that we might find in the grocery store. First thing we're gonna do is we are doing this in our Instant Pot today just because it's a little bit quicker. This isn't a recipe that takes that long. It only takes about 10 to 15 minutes to cook. I like to use an Instant Pot because it does help the flavors all meld together, and it'll taste like you had that soup sitting on the stove cooking and just kind of marinating all day long just by throwing it in the Instant Pot. It's also really nice that it's a one-pot meal. Most of your soups, you are just gonna be dumping that stuff into the pot and cooking it as you go anyways, but it's nice to just have one thing to clean up and all of that. So love a good Instant Pot or electric pressure cooker. So we're gonna start with setting our pressure cooker to saute. And then I'm just gonna add a little bit of olive oil just to coat the bottom of the pan. And we are gonna start with cooking our ground turkey. So I'm just doing about a tablespoon. And then one thing you wanna make sure that you're using, anytime you are using a ground meat, is to make sure you're getting that extra lean. It is a little bit more expensive, but it makes such a big difference. I mean, this still, it has 2 grams of fat and it's only half a gram of saturated fat. But when we start getting, even like the Food Lions brand is 90 or it's 80, I believe it's 85% of your fat-free. So it's not as lean as some of these other brands, and that's the leanest that I can find in Food Lions brand. So you just wanna make sure you're double checking that, and that'll help to kind of lighten up whatever you're cooking. It'll also help to reduce that saturated fat content, which is what we really wanna look out for. So I'm just gonna throw this into our Instant Pot and let it cook. A lot of times, whenever we're doing any type of ground meat, you want to cook that ahead of time. So, let's see if I can do this without. Just dump that in there, and I'm just going to break it up. You're just using 1 pound of that turkey. You could use a ground beef here if you prefer. I actually think a ground sausage, as long as it's really lean, would be good in this recipe as well. But we're just gonna let that start to cook up. I am gonna go ahead and add our spices. So our recipe doesn't call for this yet, but I feel like it helps to flavor that ground turkey while it's cooking, so that it just gives it a better flavor overall in your soup. So we are going to add half a teaspoon of oregano. And you can adjust this to taste. You could even do, I think I'm gonna do a little bit more, just so it's got some good coverage there with all of our spices. And then we are also gonna do half a teaspoon of cumin. Cumin has a pretty strong flavor, but it's commonly used in chilies, and soups are very common too. And then we are just gonna add a little bit of salt. I did check this actually before we threw it in here, and our salt, our sodium amount in our ground turkey is only, I believe it was 80 milligrams, which is 3% of your daily value. So very, very low in our ground meat sodium levels. So we are just gonna let this cook up. And just slowly starting to kind of move it around, get all the sides cooked. You want to make sure that your ground turkey, any poultry, is cooked to 165 degrees. That is our magic number for our turkey. But the main thing we're looking for here is that it's cooked all the way through, there's no pink. And then we are actually gonna cook it again when we put all of our ingredients in and start the Instant Pot. So it'll be a little bit longer after we've already cooked it. So we're gonna give that just a few more minutes, and then we'll see you guys back in just a second to do our vegetables next.
Introducing the Star Communications app. All the tools you need in one convenient location. You can access Watch TV everywhere. Check local channel lineup. Check your Star email. View and pay your Star bill. Report troubles. Use your Star security app. Check your home voicemail. Sign up for Crowd Fiber. Check your Wi-Fi speed. The list keeps going and going. Download for free from the App Store or Google Play.
All right, so our turkey is cooking up really nicely. I know it's pretty smoky, but I don't really see any pink at all. I'm gonna turn this off just for right now. Typically, we would be chopping all of our vegetables while our turkey was cooking, but we're gonna get to that in just a minute. So I just turned that off for now. I'm gonna add 1 clove of minced garlic, 1 clove of garlic that I'm gonna press in a garlic press to be more of a minced garlic. You could also use the kind in a jar. It's just a little bit more fragrant this way. And you could also do garlic powder if you don't have that. So don't feel like you have to run to the grocery store if you have all these ingredients except for garlic. Next, we're gonna add some onion. So we're adding 1 medium onion. This one's try to get more of the medium size. It's still pretty big. I'm gonna cut that in half and then just make little grooves here. Just watching those fingers. And then we're gonna cut it the opposite direction, and that'll dice our onion for us. And then we'll go ahead and do the other side. And the best thing about this is that it does keep it from rocking back and forth. So that's why I like to cut it in half. You have a sturdy hold on your onion, and you can just have a little bit more control over that. My knife isn't quite as sharp as I'd like it to be, but that's all right. Still working. All right, so I'm just gonna run the knife through it one more time to get it chopped up. And then we're gonna toss this in, toss it in with our meat. So this is just such a tasty, kind of hearty soup that you can make, especially when it starts to get cooler. All right, so we're gonna move on to our celery, and we're just gonna use about half of this. So half of a bunch of celery. I'm just gonna break off those outer pieces. And let's see, that's pretty good. We'll do that much. And I've already rinsed my celery off, so you just wanna make sure that you're rinsing your vegetables before you're actually using them. And I cut the end off because a lot of times, and I think you can see it on this side, it starts to get a little bit kind of brown on the top. So it's really good just to go ahead and rinse that really well. So we're just gonna chop this up. You could use a food processor for some of these steps if you feel like you need to. All right, so we're just chopping this up. We're gonna go back through. You could have chopped this into the celery into multiple pieces, We're just gonna run the knife back through all the way. Since we have so many pieces of celery we're cutting here, it's just easier to just go ahead and run it through. Now you could save this for a vegetable stock later and use that. So that's a way that you can utilize any of that leftover celery. I like things to be kind of more in those bite-sized pieces. You guys hear me say that all the time, but just because I think it helps to get a little bit of everything in every bite. That way you don't have just this one big giant bite of just celery. So I'm gonna try to cut this up pretty fine. As fine as I can. Now you could adjust this whole recipe, you can make it to taste. So if you don't like celery, you could use another vegetable. We are adding carrots to this. So maybe if you wanted to add extra carrots, the goal here is just to have a lot of really tasty vegetables into our soup, because that helps to flavor it really nicely as well. All right, almost got it done. That looks pretty good. So we'll just add this in here. And I'm actually gonna throw our pressure cooker back on to saute just to start really cooking those onions that we've got. Because really by this time that we start this, it's just gonna be cooking through. So you want to really saute those onions, that celery, you want that to be nice and cooked through, and our carrots as well. So we're gonna throw, this calls for half of a pound of carrots. I just bought the carrot chips that are already chopped up. So I'm gonna throw, this is a whole pound, so we're gonna throw half of this bag in there, and then we'll see you guys back in just a second to finish this up.
Sweetie, will you turn that down, please?
Keep life exciting, even when it's not. Watch TV everywhere from Star Communications.
All right, so we have our vegetables all in the pot here. We're just gonna saute those up and we really want the onions to get cooked through, get nice and translucent, and start to soften up some of those hard vegetables like our carrots and our celery. So we're gonna let that cook just a little bit. And while that's cooking, we'll move on to using our kale. Now, I absolutely love kale. It is one of those vegetables, some people think it has, or it's one of those greens that kind of has more of a bitter flavor. If you take kale, you put it in soup, it's delicious that way. But if you also take a little bit of olive oil and you massage it, it starts to soften up those leaves and it's easier to eat. It tastes better. So I like to eat it in salad as long as I've softened up those leaves. You can also, you may have seen kale chips floating around. There's a lot of kale chip recipes out. So those are really tasty as well. You just put whatever seasonings you want, rub that olive oil on them really good and throw them in the oven and bake them 10 to 15 minutes and it's done. So there's a lot of things that you can do with kale, and this is really common around the fall and throughout winter. We see kale. So what we're gonna do is just kind of get these big stems off of our kale here. So I just bought the bag of kale. It's just a big bag of kale greens. They have this at Food Lion, and it does have the stems in it. So if you want to kind of avoid all of that trouble, it would be a lot easier if I just had a big bunch of kale and I could just rip the leaf all the way down. Unfortunately, I could not find kale available other than in that bag. So I kind of have to go through this. We are going to be chopping it up anyways, or just ripping it with our fingers. So it's already almost in those chopped bite-sized pieces as it is, but we just want to go through this and tear off any of those hardier stems. So while our vegetables are cooking down, we can just sit here and do this really quickly. Now, kale is one of those vegetables that does have a lot of really healthy nutrients for us. It does have a lot of vitamin A, which is good for our eyesight. It also is really high in calcium and potassium. So potassium is one of those things that helps with our cells and regrowing our cells and all of those. So very important nutrient to be getting and consuming, and this has a lot of potassium in it. So if you're trying to find kind of a different green to consume other than maybe you're just a spinach person and that's just what you gravitate towards, give kale a try because it really does have some good flavor. So I've almost got most of these big stems out. And those will cook down. If you want to take out this step, it is perfectly okay. They do cook down. We're just not going to be cooking this for very long in the Instant Pot. You would just have to up your time a little bit to make those stems softer. They are definitely edible. It's not like they're difficult to eat whenever they are, if they're still in your food, as long as they're cooked. If you were doing raw kale and you were eating it just like this is a little bit more sturdy and it probably wouldn't be very good. All right, so we're gonna check this. It's looking good. I hear it slowing down over here. I did have to chop my kale chips up, or sorry, my carrot chips up just a little bit more so that they were in smaller pieces. So just keep an eye on that if you do decide to buy the pre-bagged chopped carrots. All right, so I think that's most of the really big pieces. I'm gonna throw this in with our vegetable mixture over here, our meats and vegetables. And I don't think I mentioned this, you need about 1 bunch of kale. So if you were buying this in the store and you just bought the whole big bunch itself, you just need 1 of those. I'm gonna do about this much, which is probably 2 to 3 cups of kale. And that does cook down a lot anyways, so we will just throw that in. And you want it to get kind of cooked down, so really mixing it in with all of that stuff that's already in there so that it can get to the heat towards the bottom and to the sides of the pot, and it'll start to cook down a little bit. All right, so then the next thing that we're gonna add, the last thing that we're gonna add is gonna be our white beans. And these are just great northern beans. I've already rinsed them. It's 1 can of these, one like 15-ounce can. I've already rinsed them really well just to reduce some of that sodium and also clean them off a little bit. All right, and then the last thing that I'm gonna add is gonna be a little bit of crushed red peppers. Now these can be very hot, very spicy, so be very lightly seasoned with these. Don't kind of do a little bit of overkill. Also, one thing about the Instant Pot is it does condense and meld all the flavors. So if you are adding seasonings to your Instant Pot, you wanna make sure that you're being more light-handed with that. Otherwise, it's gonna be way too strong. So we'll just do that much. And then we're gonna add 2 cups of our chicken broth. And then we will get our Instant Pot started and get it going. We'll see you back in just a second.
After completing my contract, I still have to buy out of it? Come on. Here's your sign.
Switch to the sign that's keeping home secure and customers happy all over the area. Security from Star Communications. We pride ourselves on fair pricing and quick, friendly service every time.
Somebody trying to break into this place?
Security from Star Communications.
All right, so it has been 10 minutes, and you do have to keep into account your Instant Pot coming up to pressure and then coming back down from pressure. So this is something that we call a quick release. So it came up from pressure, and then it'll beep and tell you, hey, I'm cooking, and the time will pop up on your screen. And then when you do a quick release, there's a valve over here that you just click, you push it to where it says venting, and you'll start to see there's steam coming out here. It's almost done getting all of that steam out to where I can open this, but there's also a little red button here, and this will pop up when you've built pressure, and it will pop down when the pressure has fully left the Instant Pot or electric pressure cooker. So any electric pressure cooker that you have. Instant Pot is just the brand I have today. So we're waiting for that little knob to pop down and for this steam to fully stop coming out. Now you don't want to put your hand over this typically, but since we're towards the end of that steam coming out, it's not as much and it's not quite as hot. When it first comes out, it explodes. You have tons of steam that comes out, and it is very, very hot, and it can scald your hand. So just be very careful. So as soon as this is done, we're gonna open it up and I'll show you guys what it looks like. Now in terms of this soup, you can add whatever you want to on top. So if you like a little bit more of a creamy soup, you could add in some milk or even just some Greek yogurt. So it popped down, so that's telling me, hey, 1 more minute after that, we can open it. We are actually gonna add in this cheese I had in the fridge here, Parmesan Romano blend cheese. I think that would be really tasty. I think any white cheese on this soup just would pair really nicely just with the flavors that we have. So a Parmesan, a white cheddar would probably be good. You could even go the spicy route and choose something like a pepper jack. So always open that away from you because the steam is gonna come out really quickly. And then some of your electric pressure cookers will actually have a little area that you can put the lid right into that handle. So it looks good, it smells really good as well. We're gonna give it just a little stir, and I'll go ahead and pour some out for you guys. So you can see that the carrots have definitely cooked through. Our celery is getting more translucent, so it looks like it's cooked through very well as well. So I'm just gonna put some of this in our bowl here. I love soups, especially on a day like today. It's been gross and rainy outside, and it's something that's just, it's so comforting just to have a nice bowl of soup that'll keep you warm on a rainy day, on a cold rainy day. So that looks good. And then we're just gonna throw our Parmesan Romano cheese on top. So you can gauge this however much you want. You do have to be mindful of that cheese that you're using does have some fat in there, which fat's not all bad for us, but we just still wanna watch that. We don't wanna consume too much saturated fat because we do get it in a lot of the sources that we eat throughout the day. So you can mix that all together. And another great thing about this soup is it has a lot of different colors in it. We always talk about eating the rainbow, trying to get a lot of colors into your diet every day. So we've got some pretty orange here. We do have some white vegetables, which are our onions. That is a vegetable as well that fits into our color wheel, and we want to consume those white vegetables too, like onions and garlic. We've got our nice green leafy vegetables here, which are really great for us. And then we do have beans, which fit, it's a protein, but it also fits into our vegetable category as well. So we're kind of getting a 2-for-1 here. And your beans are gonna provide a lot of that fiber as well as your vegetables do. So this is a great meal that you have. You can make this and just eat on it for the week. It's a great lunch, a great dinner, but serve it with some cornbread or just eat it like this and enjoy it. We'll see you guys next time.